know.
MagMongoSlade. MagMongoSlade. MagMongoSlade.
Let's talk about Dynamite. I wish I didn't have to, but I do, because I watched it, and we're going to share in this pain. We're going to share this pain, all right? All right, so somebody on Twitter, matter of fact, let me correct myself. This is 3 Count Commentaries. This is your host, MagMongoSlade. Today we're going to talk about AEW Dynamite from October the 4th, 2023. Dynamite shook things up a little bit. Not enough, though. Not nearly enough. Somebody said that AEW, 4 years into their run, compared to WCW 4 years into their run. But then they did not know that WCW didn't begin with Nitro, that it actually existed 5 years before Nitro existed, and that it was WCW in like 1989. So I don't think it's a fair comparison, but that's the only note that I really have. Is a lot of people are, because this is the 4th anniversary of Dynamite, they want to compare AEW to WCW. It's not fair. You know, it's let's just start with Nitro. Nitro started in 1995. It went off the air in 2001. So it was on for 6 years. In the first 4 years of AEW, and the first 4 years of Nitro, well, Nitro was pretty much dead in 99, if we're being honest. It limped along in 2000 and 2001, which is where they was basically saying like, oh, AEW, while they lost some of the audience, they still have the energy, and they still have, a steady audience. 4 years into their run, they're better off than when WCW was 4 years into their run. Again, WCW existed before 1995, but again, it don't make sense. But when you take into account, if you just start with when Nitro was created, which was, what was this, September 95, I think. 2 years later, they were beating Raw, and they were going head up with Raw from the beginning, and then they were dominating through 97 and 98. They were dominating. 99, things hit the skids. 2000, they were in the shits. 2001, they were off the air. All right. Dynamite has not had the highs of Nitro. They also have not had the lows. Dynamite, even as bad as it can get, has not reached Nitro 1999, 2000, 2001 levels. It has not gotten that bad yet. And I think the consistency, well, Dynamite wasn't very good from the beginning. It's actually better now, believe it or not, than when it was when it started. But it's more consistent in terms of storytelling. The talent is wildly different. They were hot-shotting a lot at the beginning because they were head up with NXT, so they were hot-shotting a lot. Now they don't hot-shot nearly as much, and it's more, the flaws are more visible. But Nitro ran head up with Raw its entire run, which, led to a lot of hot-shotting and a lot of, we got to catch up, and a lot of comparisons and a lot of the unfairness that came with it. I don't think it's right to compare Dynamite to Nitro. I just don't think it's intelligent to do. Because the people with the nostalgia glasses who love Nitro and love WCW, they're just going to tear Dynamite apart. I mean, they have had nothing, absolutely nothing, that can even compare to WCW's Cruiserweight division half the time. Even in the stars that they made in the Cruiserweight division, which they were very slow to actually capitalize on, they haven't even done anything on that level yet. Let alone Goldberg, let alone Sting, let alone the NWO. They haven't done anything near that yet. The closest thing that they got was CM Punk's return. And he's gone now. He was there for 2 years, and now he's gone. But they have a lot of similarities, and I think that was the plan when Dynamite was created, is they wanted to fill the void left behind by WCW. And they did it, AEW is a place where guys who, Vince and the WWE are now with Triple H have gotten old and have kind of outlived their usefulness, like, Edge and soon to be Dolph Ziggler, and maybe you'll let some of the young ones get away too. Like, Jeff Jarrett jumped ship and X-Pac jumped ship and, guys that were in the middle of a push, but were kind of unhappy either financially or creatively, like Scott Hall and Kevin Nash. You could equate like a Jon Moxley to somebody like that. And what I mean by equate, I don't want anybody, people get so tight-assed about this kind of stuff. What I'm saying is it's a similar situation. Not Jon Moxley is as good as Razor Ramon. Don't be retarded. All right. So, and I guess the Hulk Hogan would be Chris Jericho, a guy you thought would be a lifer that would end up jumping ship and becoming one of the biggest homers possible. And, but I don't think it's fair. And I think that a lot of people want Dynamite and AEW to be grander and greater than it is. It just doesn't have the writing, the characters. It doesn't just have what Nitro had. Nitro had competition its entire run. Dynamite had competition for the first 2 years, I think, from 2019 to late 2021. And then all of a sudden, NXT moved to Tuesdays, and it became pretty clear that AEW was going to run unopposed. If Nitro hadn't gotten to run unopposed, it might have actually been better, and it might have actually stopped hot-shotting so much, and the booking would have changed. But because they were running and insisted on running head-to-head every week, the philosophies are a little bit different. So there's a lot of situations about the WCW, AEW comparison that a lot of people are doing online that are unfair. Just the fact that AEW is running unopposed is a great benefit to them creatively because they get the night to themselves. They get to take their time and tell stories. They don't have to try to hot shot angles. They don't have to try to hot shot debuts. And they still do it sometimes. They still do it. But not nearly as much as at the beginning. At the beginning, there was a lot more hot shotting than it is now. And to some degree, that kind of blew the doors off Dynamite anyway, because once that stuff slowed down, a lot of the audience started to erode. But I just think that it's unfair. And for a 4th anniversary episode of Dynamite, this was very, very weak. Very weak. I was actually kind of embarrassed at how bad this show was. As a matter of fact, it was so bad, let's talk about it. Jericho and Omega, they start the show with a promo segment. Edge appears in the middle of this promo segment talking about how he's happy to be here. And he's glad to be here for the 4th anniversary. Hoping to be here for the 8th and the 12th. That's a lot of years, dog. You plan to be here for another 8 years? Brother, you be 60. You're already 50. Anyway, him and Kenny Omega had a moment where they meet. And Kenny Omega said, "You had me on the edge of my seat," I even chuckled at that. It's a nice little pun, inside joke. And the two of them shake hands, and there's an oddity about the handshake between the two of them. Then it's almost like there's tension between them as they shake hands. And then, of course, Edge talks later. I'm still going to call him Edge. Screw all this Adam Copeland stuff. It just doesn't sound right. And, of course, Edge says that he doesn't like Don Callis either. So he hopes that they do damage to Don Callis. So since we're talking about Don Callis, let's get that stuff out of the way first because it was very disappointing. The idea was that Konosuke Takeshita and Sammy Guevara were going to wrestle Kenny Omega and Chris Jericho. Then Don Callis comes on the screen and says that the quack medical team of AEW will not clear Sammy Guevara. And since there's no shortage of able-bodied, hot, sexy young male athletes, or whatever he said, that want to fill Sammy Guevara's spot, he chose Kyle Fletcher of Aussie Open. Kyle Fletcher. That guy sounds like an FCW washout. So the tag team match went entirely too long. Chris Jericho and Kenny Omega defeat Kyle Fletcher and Konosuke Takeshita. I promise you I didn't care about this. I would have probably paid more attention if Sammy Guevara was in it because there'd have been more storyline elements in it. But I wouldn't have cared about that either. These people just wrestled. All right, they just wrestled on Sunday. Like these four same people. Well, not Kyle Fletcher. God damn it. 3 of these 4 people wrestled each other on Sunday. Right. So anyway, after Kyle Fletcher, who was subbed and took the pin because somebody had to, which seems to me like Sammy Guevara probably was not medically cleared, but they realized when they booked it, somebody's got to eat a pin. And they were like, who's going to eat the pin? Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Catch a tiger by, it's Guevara. It's got to be you. And they was like, you know what? Can't be him because you're doing a storyline with him and Chris Jericho. Jericho can't beat him yet. So we're just going to say he's not medically cleared. We're going to swap in Kyle Fletcher. Now, unless you got a doctor's note that says that Sammy Guevara is hurt, I'm pretty much going to say that they swapped him out because they didn't want to beat him. Because Kyle Fletcher was obviously going to take the pinfall once he was subbed in, right? And people were very, very, very disappointed when it was announced. But it's the AEW fan base. They very quickly got over it and was like, Kyle Fletcher, yay, we like him. And I was like, who is Kyle Fletcher and why should I care? I've seen this guy on my TV quite a few times. I just don't understand why I should care about him. So after the match is when things got real. Powerhouse Hobbs attacked Jericho and Kenny Omega. Now, in a vacuum, and if it had stopped with him hitting Kenny Omega with a spine buster, I'd have said, you know what? All right. Now, I'm always going to be naive and be a sucker when it comes to Powerhouse Hobbs. I've been a fan of the guy since he was a jobber. I want them to finally get it right. It would be, but the analyst within me has to tell the truth. This is like the 5th push for this guy, right? And they just can't seem to figure it out. They put him with Taz, then they fucked that up, even though him and Ricky Starks probably should have been the tag team champions. They had something there between the two of them. They fucked that up. And then he was the TNT champion. That was great. Then they fucked that up. Then they put him with QT Marshall, which is a fuck up in and of itself. And then they decided, oh yeah, we'll put him with Don Callis. Now, this is probably the best idea since he was hanging out with Ricky Starks. At the same time, though, this is like the 8th push, 5th, 6th push for this guy. You know, like you can't, how many times you going to reheat that chicken? You know, how many times you going to, you know, it's like Thanksgiving Day food. How many times you going to put it in the freezer and take it back out? You know, my mama she's a real stickler about that, you know. 3 days max, that's it. And she's throwing everything away. So Hobbs, I'm always going to be a fan. I didn't like this fight scene though. Like this thing took entirely too long. Like he took Kenny Omega, he beat him all into the crowd. He choked him in the barricade. He came back. They started playing with duct tape. I don't even know why they needed duct tape. Like what was that about? And then Jericho had to be the hero, sacrifice himself for Kenny Omega, take the bullet for Omega, and go down. And then I think it was Omega got smashed in the head with a chair for the boys, as Cody would say. You remember when Cody got hit in the head with a chair and people was like, why'd you do that, Coach? And Cody was like, I did it for the boys. I had to bring it back for the boys. To show you guys that these things can be done safely and effectively. So I did it for the boys. If you don't believe that Cody said that, for starters, I'm not a liar. Second, I did a video on it. So he did it. He said that he did it for the boys. Anyway, there was a lot of somber attitudes of Taz talking about, it's like the old days again. The days that we thought were long gone of guys getting hit in the head with chairs. Taz was like, I remember them days. Like, yeah, I bet you do. So Hobbs is now hanging out with Don Callis, who thinks that Hobbs is a killer. He also thinks that Kyle Fletcher betrayed him. So Hobbs and Callis, I want this to be, I hope that this is the one. It probably ain't going to be. It probably ain't going to. They don't know how to use big guys in AEW, man. I'm not buying into it. I'm not feeling it, you know, but I want this to work. I want Don Callis and Powerhouse Hobbs want this thing to work out because I want Hobbs to, be featured on this show. But Omega and Jericho are now best buds, and I don't know. That's very weird. Jericho is trying to really recoup himself by throwing himself in front of the chair, and then, going down and everything. Okay, Jericho, whatever you say, brother. All right, but Edge was in that segment too. Let's talk about the last segment while we're here, because this is what they made everybody wait for. They made everybody wait all night so that Edge could say the things that he said in various interviews, Sports Illustrated, CBS, so many other interviews, which I'm not going to recap because, again, he said pretty much the same thing. Everybody wants to know why he's here, and he says he wants to win the AEW World Championship. There's a whole slew of fresh matches and first-time evers, and he went through a list of people he's never wrestled before, some of whom were spent a significant amount of time in WWE. And I actually forgot that the Shield debuted after Edge retired. So he never did get to wrestle Jon Moxley. Miro also debuted, I believe, after Edge retired. So he never got to wrestle Miro. He also never got to wrestle FTR. So there's some WWE guys, and you think that, Edge is a WWE guy. He's been there forever. But he was retired for 10 years. So some of these guys have been in the business for a long time. They didn't debut until after he left. So that's interesting. That's interesting. I like that. So then he says he wants to challenge himself with something new 30 years into his career, which is very good. I actually appreciate that answer. And then he said his main reason is that he asked his family, his daughter suggested he go have fun with Uncle Jay. That's the part I didn't like because he could have just subbed out Uncle Christian. And now we going back and forth between Jay and Christian. I'm going to call him what y'all call him, Christian Cage. And I'm like, probably should have just started there from the beginning. Because now, look, I know people aren't stupid. They're not going to be like, who's Jay? Who's Christian? Is he Jay or is he Christian? It's like, for continuity's sake, we know that in universe, sometimes people call Batman Bruce. Because that's his name. His name is Bruce. But 90% of the people, 99% of the people call him Batman. You don't call him Bruce in public. So the idea that you would call him Jay in public, it's just a little weird, but whatever. In any event, he called out Christian. Christian comes out there. And he gives Christian the speech. And this was the best part of the promo because this was actually new information. And this was something that was kind of worthy of getting excited about. He talked about them being friends for 40 years. Then he saw Christian standing over Sting. Then he talked about the importance of Sting, how Christian wanted to be like Sting. He had the rat tail and the high top, and that, he was Lex Luger and Christian was Sting. Sting was his hero. Everybody loves Sting. He cannot watch him give Sting a concerto. But the real reason he's out here is because he thinks that Luchasaurus and Nick Wayne are going to toss Christian Cage to the side once they get anything that they can get out of him. And then he says, but the most reason is it's time. It's time for the two of them to team up again, to show why they're the greatest tag team of all time, to face the Young Bucks, to face FTR, to face those teams, and to become the tag team champions. And people were very, very, very excited. They were very hooked. More by the idea of Christian and Edge being partners again. And now we see what the end game is. To me, the end game is not Christian versus Edge, but it's Edge and Christian as the tag team champions. That's the end, right? And I want to talk about that a little bit too, maybe in a second or so, because it just popped into my head again. We'll talk about it in a second. But that's the end. The end is not these guys fighting against each other. The end is these guys patching things up and becoming a tag team again. That's what everybody wants to see. That's the feel good moment. We got to go through the rough patch of Christian being a sawed off asshole for a little while. And then we get, the big relief of the two of them being tag team. How long is that going to take? We don't know. I would imagine at least a year or two. I would imagine this is going to take 2 years. Because if it takes 6 months, then there's no point for him even showing up here. All right. So I would imagine it's going to take 2 years. It should be a while before they even fight each other. I'm talking like it should be months before they even start throwing punches at each other. You know? So it ought to be very interesting. So Christian gave Edge a hug, and then he told him to go fuck himself, which they bleeped on the live cam. But there's the audio. Of course, you knew what he was saying because people were pissed. And Edge stood there dumbfounded. Then Luchasaurus came out there, and Nick Wayne also came out there, and they all stared at Edge, and he stared at them, and that's how they went off the air. I think it was a very strong promo. You know, mission statement right out of the gate. He's there to challenge himself to do different things, to win world titles, to face people he's never faced before. He's a stranger in a strange land. But he does have a friend there. And his friend has, kind of gone rogue. And so now he's like, look, how can I, get this guy back on track? Get him to remember who he is. And then finish our careers together in the right way. The way things should be. Not with us as enemies, but with us as friends. That's a good story. It's far better than what they did when it comes to when CM Punk came in. When CM Punk came in, there was really no plan. It was just the CM Punk, returns tour. He came out like Princess Diana, smiling and cutting pretty much the same fucking promo every week. They already started Edge with a story. His story is with Christian. And it seemed like that's going to be his tale. His tale is with Christian. And it ends with the two of them being tag team champions or whatever. I like that. A lot of people, and this is what I meant by earlier when I said I was going to talk about it. Edge said in one of these interviews that the Toronto match with Sheamus was the end of the Edge story. And he is kind of like it's the end of that character. But now it's time for him to do something else, and it's a little bit more personal. Which is similar to what, Cody said. Cody didn't, because he's using his same name, he didn't say like, oh, it's the end of that character. But there's an element that operates outside of what he was doing at that particular point in time. To finish the story with something that can only happen in the WWE. To finish his tale with Christian, it just so happens that it's going to occur in AEW because WWE clearly had no interest in doing it because Christian was a free agent recently. His contract was coming up and he re-signed with AEW. But back when he came back, WWE had the opportunity to sign Christian. They chose not to. This was under the Vince era. And it's true, and it's honest, and nobody can deny it. Vince never really rated Christian very highly. He didn't really care about Christian at all. And very unfair to Christian because the guy has always overperformed in terms of if you put him on the roster, whatever he's doing, he's overperforming. But Vince just has always had it out for him. Just never really gravitated to him. And that's blown up in the face, which is why Edge is in AEW. But my issue with this is that it's a personal story. And as long as it's that, I guess it's fine. But it's almost as if the same thing with Owen Hart or with Antonio Inoki, where you kind of get the feeling that AEW put no effort into this story, but they're going to be the beneficiaries of it. It's very weird. Like it's hard to explain, where none of the groundwork of Edge and Christian exists in the AEW canon, in the AEW lore, and none of it exists because it was way before AEW was created. So for them to be the beneficiaries of it ending seems very off-putting, It's almost like when you write a story, you should get a satisfactory ending. At least you would hope so. When you're looking at the ending of Edge and Christian as a tag team, Edge and Christian as a pair, that entire is a WWE story, you know, and for it to end in AEW just seems very odd. You can't stitch those two things together. They're going to try to, you know, just by them being two old buddies, but it's like everything that they did with, you know, the video packages that they could have put together, the moments that they could have had, the memories, none of that exists in AEW, you know? So they have to talk about it and know that the audience knows about it, but to have it packaged up, you know, in the appropriate way, to have it put out there for the audience in the best, most complete form, it is not going to work. It's like when Ric Flair kept wrestling after WrestleMania 24, you know? It's like WWE gave you a fantastic send-off, and then you decided to go wrestle in TNA, you know? And people are like, does TNA really deserve to have the very last match of Ric Flair? No, and then of course they did, because Flair continued to wrestle after that. But at the time, most people didn't know that. People thought these could be the last matches of Ric Flair, and he was wrestling in TNA, you know? And it's like, it doesn't feel right. It feels like something is missing. So when Ric Flair came back and he did his last match, and it was under Jim Crockett Promotions, that's when it felt right, you know? That's when, you know, when they went the old NWA model, and they bringing in people from all over the country, even though it wasn't in WWE, it makes sense because Ric Flair was not really a WWE guy. He was a Jim Crockett Promotions guy. You know? He was an NWA guy. It stands to reason that his final match take place under the banner that he had the bulk of his career. You know? That's the nice poetic bow on top. And WrestleMania 24 was a perfect ending for Flair because he had done enough in the WWE now. He was there for a while, you know, much longer than Edge is going to spend in AEW. So you can, and then, you know, with the Evolution stuff and everything, and the Triple H and all that kind of stuff, you can say that, all right, WrestleMania 24 was perfect. When it comes to Edge and Christian, I just don't see it the same way. You know, and that's why I say it has to last 2 years. You have to build up the lore within the structure of AEW in order to end the story appropriately or in a satisfactory way. Otherwise, you're basically just saying we're going to cash in our chips from 30 years ago in this place. So they're going to benefit, but they're not going to do any of the effort. There's not going to be any big fancy video packages. There's not going to be anything with any weight to it. You know, the clips of them, they probably got, you know, stuff from them as friends, you know, at pictures from their childhood and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure they got stuff like that. But then when it comes to, you know, the TLC, the flash photography stuff, you know, the various mini feuds they had during the time when they were there, you know, Edge helping Christian become the world champion for the first time, you know, all those things. It's just, AEW is going to come up short, and it's not their fault. It's not their fault they didn't exist. But when you try to cash in on something, especially when it's supposed to be one unified story, it doesn't feel right, you know? It's like the Batman catching the Joker in a Green Arrow book. You know, it's like, all right, we finally figured out who the Joker is, but it's in a goddamn Wonder Woman book. Like, it ain't got nothing to do with this. You know, it's got nothing to do with this at all. Oh yeah, Mario, he finally saved Princess Peach and defeated Bowser in a Zelda game. It's like, what the fuck? You know, okay. You know, at least if you liked Mario, the game is over, but that's not where the lore is. That's not where any of the stories are. You know, maybe I'm rambling, but hopefully I've effectively communicated how I feel about Edge and Christian finishing their careers in AEW, which they should. They should not try to come back to WWE and finish it, because this thing should last a year or two to build up some lore in AEW and then end it. You know, after they lose the tag team titles or whatever, they can retire together, and that would be great. That would rule. So here's to hoping neither one of them gets injured, and they think it can end it on their own terms. So, but I got the ick when I'm thinking about them ending their story in AEW. It's weird. It's just very weird. The first match on the show was Nick Jackson versus Rey Fenix. This match sucked. Nick Jackson has no muscles, no muscle definition. He kicked a metal ring post and then continued to jump all over the place. This match is stupid. I don't care about this match. Rey Fenix won. What a dumb match. God. Next. Terrible audio. Now, they tried to blame it on TBS. Oh, it was TBS. Their audio is very terrible, so we're going to replay it again. But it was a video package of Adam Cole visiting Roderick Strong. So Roderick Strong gave him one of those scooters, so they can scoot around the house, him in his wheelchair and Adam Cole on his scooter. And they had fun. And the pictures and the facial expressions of Adam Cole having fun are actually funny. I'm not even going to hold you up. They're actually very entertaining. So he was thrilled that Roderick Strong helped him out and gave him something so that he won't have to use his injured leg. He's off crutches. And then he says the real reason he called him there, the emergency, is that he needs Adam Cole's help to rearrange his furniture. What? Yeah, to rearrange his furniture. And he's like, dude, I need ankle surgery. What are you talking about? Why can't the Kingdom do it? He's like, these guys don't know anything about interior design. And so Adam Cole is actually on one leg, moving couches and stuff in Roderick Strong's house. It's legitimately funny, all right? And then he's saying, oh, I gotta go get this surgery. I'll be back. And then he's like, Adam, I still need your help. So now we're one step from Roderick Strong being like Misery and chaining Adam Cole into the bed and won't let him leave. This was actually funny. So I'm gonna give him credit. There was parts of this that was actually funny. The audio issues, though, very Bush League. I pray to you can't blame TBS, man. I've never heard the audio go out on any TBS television show except this one. This is the only show where the audio, like, do the Braves baseball games or whatever they show, basketball games, do the audio clink out like that? If not, then it's Dynamite. It's not fucking TBS. They know how to run live sports, all right? Why are you blaming them? It's your audio that's shitty, brother. Because your audio is always shitty. And that's one thing WCW didn't have. They didn't have shitty audio. How could ECW figure it out? ECW barely had microphones. And their audio wasn't nearly as bad as AEW. All right, so Griff Garrison was in the ring. He looked like a goof. And we was waiting for his opponent. And it ended up being Wardlow. So Wardlow marched to the ring, very aggressively beat the tar out of Griff Garrison, powerbombed him 5 times. The referee just like, you know what, I'm going to call this off. And Wardlow stomped out through the crowd. So he was in the ring for all of 3 or 4 minutes. Quick squash match of Griff Garrison, which it should have been. And that was that. Okay. Hopefully this is the beginning of something, because what else am I supposed to take away from this? He powerbombed Griff Garrison a bunch of times. What else am I supposed to take away from this? I don't know. Poor Griff Garrison. He's still hanging around, brother. All right. Kip Sabian and the Butcher and the Blade wrestled the Acclaim. It was awful. Who cares? Nobody cares about these people. Toni Storm did a promo segment in which this was the Portrait of a Star, the last segment, where she was throwing a fit about watching her friends wither away while she was wondering if she has it or whether she was just lucky. And she says that RJ City doesn't know, he can't know, he won't know what it means to have it. And then she was weeping and acting out. And then RJ City's like, you're not even old. Even though she's been in the business for 14 years. Which means she's been in the business since she was 13, 14 maybe? Because she's not, well, she was 25 when she was in WWE. That was like a year or two ago. So maybe 27, 28? I don't know. But she's been in the business a long time, apparently. And so then she starts, I'm timeless. 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 And so now that's her new name. Timeless Toni Storm. With the gimmick of Hollywood starlet. She's a crazy person. She got her, it's half Chelsea Green, part Lacey Evans, part Chelsea Green. And I like it. All right. Part Marilyn Monroe, part Chelsea Green, part Lacey Evans. The part about Lacey Evans is being a throwback female to a different age. The part of Chelsea Green is when Chelsea Green was like the crazy bride. She had the makeup that was smeared all over her face, and she was acting odd, and she was screaming at people and all that kind of stuff. She was doing that in Impact. The hot mess, Chelsea Green. She likes playing crazy people. So Toni Storm has adopted that. And then she has wrapped it up in her own individual look, which is very Hollywood starlet. I like the illustrious Toni Storm more as a nickname, but Timeless is good too. So she comes out there. She actually throws the commercial as she's wrestling Sky Blue. In an old way, what she said, now a word from our sponsors or something like that. She wanted a close up before she did the hip attack and one with her power driver. She has really cracked open something with this character. Her being psychotic is probably the one element of it that if I would critique it, that would be it. Like, she could be a throwback movie star type of character where she's glamorous and everything is well in place, and that would be great. But the smeared makeup and all that kind of stuff, that's a little extra. Maybe we don't need that, but I think what they're doing is fine. I'm just wondering, where is it going to go? Because this character needs to have a direction. All right. So if the direction is whether she's going to be world champion again, all right, but that needs to be communicated, and you can give it time. It doesn't need to be immediate. In fact, it shouldn't be, because Saraya needs to have, if you want to even call it a title run, she's basically holding the belt. She's holding it hostage because I guess they want Mercedes to wrestle her for it, which is stupid in my book. The reason Paige had to retire is because of Sasha Banks, and now they're going to put him in the ring again. Probably not smart, but whatever. I don't know if I mentioned Toni Storm's opponent was Sky Blue. So you already know they brought the bakery out to try to get people to watch this show. They made sure that, there was enough little Dutch girl donuts in the ring for everybody to be excited. So Timeless Toni Storm was really good. Okay, that was fine. Then we finally get some passionate promos from Bryan Danielson about his win over Zack Sabre Jr. So that he was very happy and excited, very grateful to be able to have a match like that on TV. And he never expected to do something like that before. And he said they never figured out who the best technical wrestler was because Zack Sabre Jr. got knocked out. And Zack Sabre Jr. agreed that, knocking him out was not fair play. But then Danielson started talking about how Zack Sabre Jr. doesn't have the heart, he doesn't have the soul that he has. And I'm thinking to myself, unless these two are going to have another match, why are you showing us this promo? Unless these guys are going to wrestle again, why are you showing me this promo? And I really don't want to see them wrestle again, if we're being honest. If we just perfectly being honest. I have no interest in watching them wrestle again. So then they announced that Swerve Strickland is going to be wrestling Bryan Danielson next week on Dynamite. because it's going up against NXT. I'm sorry, because the winner is going to wrestle the TNT champion, Christian Cage. Danielson going for the TNT title. Ha! Okay, Christian versus Danielson, or Christian versus Swerve Strickland. Either way, that's good. I would put Swerve over personally, but then you'll be in that heel versus heel situation that I don't really care for. But it's not like Tony Khan gives a shit anyway. So, ought to be interesting. All right, so Juice Robinson, man, if Juice Robinson didn't throw you into a murderous rage in this segment, I have to say you have the patience of Job. My goodness. You have the patience of a spineless person. If you did not want to find Juice Robinson's address and throw it, just choke him from the mailbox, you are a very patient person. Because upon seeing this, I just wanted to douse this sumbitch in anthrax. All right. I was like, this guy has got to, I want to cover him in Raid. God damn. I was so pissed that he got so much time to act a fool on this television. I hate it so much. I hate it so much. So Juice Robinson and the Guns. All right. They come out there, talk about MJF being scared of the Bang Bang Gang. That's why he jumped Jay White from behind. Then Juice Robinson demanded an explanation. MJF came out there and called Juice Robinson a talentless taint, which is too much. You gave him too much credit. He's not a taint. He's barely earwax hair. And then he, of course, called the Guns the ass boys. He led the crowd to a chant of ass boys and talentless taints, which... Now, the anthrax part of this whole scenario comes in when Juice Robinson is in the ring talking about, I'm not a taint. I'm a rock hard taint. Or something like that. I want to throw this motherfucker in a wood chipper. All right? God, wow, he's the worst. Oh, my goodness. So, let's get through this really quickly. MJF wants to have a street fight. He goes to the ring. Everybody scatters. Jay White attacks MJF from behind, steals the world title. Afterwards, Jay White cut a promo saying that MJF's cheap parlor tricks is not going to work on him. He knows that it was MJF who attacked him. And they don't believe anything out of his lying, slimy, gutless, coward mouth, because MJF once again said that it wasn't him. And then he made a really good point about how he owns everything that he's done, and actually went through a list of terrible things he's done to people and said he had no reason to lie. It wasn't him. But the end all be all of this stuff is that Jay White challenged MJF for the title at Full Gear. And the date of that event is November the 12th, if I remember correctly. Okie dokie. MJF wanted to accept this, but not before he got sexually harassed by Max Caster of The Acclaimed. A very, very bizarre segment where the trainers were rubbing MJF's shoulders, and then, much like Gold Dust or something, Max Caster just started rubbing MJF down. And I'm like, what the fuck? What is this? So MJF saw this, freaked out, and then said that Max Caster is a stalker who keeps sending him inappropriate tweets, which he does. And he's going to call the police on him or something like that. Then he's like, oh, I got to call Adam. I can't handle this. And Adam sent him the voicemail where he didn't respond. And I was like, them playing into this Max Caster thing, completely and totally unnecessary. I hate this gay gimmick that everybody's got going on. It's so weird, bro. Never in the history of the business have dudes been like this. Ever. You know? Ever. Even as a joke. Nobody's ever been like this. So many people. So much of this type of stuff. And sexual harassment is hilarious as long as it's men on men, huh? That's when it's funny. Very well. Imagine if Max Caster was sending like Julia Hart, that kind of stuff. You know, imagine if he was sending it to, I don't know, Ruby Soho or something. People would be like, oh, that's it's unprofessional. Why would you do that? But because it's man on man, all of a sudden it's okay. Y'all don't hear me. Let's move on. MJF versus Jay White at the pay-per-view. I like it. I like Jay White. AEW fans will buy the pay-per-view regardless of whether he can draw or not. So the pay-per-view buys are probably going to be the same regardless of what you do with it. The question now is, do you put the belt on Jay White? Probably not. I would imagine that whoever is attacking Jay White is going to be revealed at Full Gear, which is my guess. And it's probably going to end up being probably somebody from New Japan or some crazy stuff like that. But they're finally going to use Jay White in a way that is familiar to somebody like me who thinks that Jay White is a main event wrestler at the very least. They haven't utilized him as such. They haven't positioned him as such always. But we see him as, or I see him as, a main event wrestler. So him versus MJF is a solid main event. So that's fine. Next, Orange Cassidy and Hook talk about a tag team. Nobody cares. Let's move on. Samoa Joe. Great promo here from Samoa Joe. He talked about being a champion. And being a champion, there's many aspects to being a champion. But you can't replace the hunger. Once you become a champion, the hunger kind of goes away. He says that you're looking at a man right now that is very satisfied. Because I've been a champion everywhere I've been. So I need to regain that hunger. I should be the AEW World Champion. And while I, do have issues with how the match ended, MJF has his respect. So, and the ending line was very cold. When he said, when I'm hungry, I always manage to eat. And I was like, yeah, buddy. This Samoa Joe guy's kind of good, huh? To be the ROH television champion. He's kind of good. Maybe we should do more with him. So they might swing back around. Maybe we swing by one more time with Samoa Joe and MJF, and Samoa Joe gets that belt. Hopefully. Can we all? I know. Look, there's nobody in place right now for MJF to lose the belt to. The roster has been decimated. There's not a lot of people left. And MJF's title run has been piss poor. It's been quite pathetic, if we're being honest. He turned babyface in the middle of his heel run, and it's been awful ever since. A lot of it has been that they chose to put him in a tag team. Now, it ended up being good for the numbers, but it was terrible for the title. And then when you look at the roster now, who's not injured? Cole's injured. Moxley is out with a concussion. Danielson is working with an injury. How many other people are working injured? I'm talking main event talent, not, bums. There's a bunch of people injured. Adam Cole is injured. There's a bunch of people injured that he can't work with anymore. So your options are Roderick Strong, who is not injured, Samoa Joe, Jay White, and Edge and Christian, I guess. Christian got the TNT title. He's dealing with that over there. And Edge is over there with him. Darby Allin, I don't know, whatever. Jericho and Omega is doing this thing with Don Callis. So MJF standing on an island by himself with no real challengers other than mid-carders. So when you're asking who is next, like we always been asking the question, like who's going to beat Roman Reigns? I mean, is MJF going to be the champion for the rest of the year? Like, I don't mean just, till 2024. I mean, like, until March. Because there's nobody anywhere in the foreseeable future who's going to be able to beat this kid because nobody's ready. They have positioned nobody to be in the spot to be able to challenge MJF credibly since Samoa Joe. And Samoa Joe was something that fell in their lap because of the CM Punk situation. So hopefully they swing back and Joe wins the title, which is, probably not going to happen, but they need to do that. I would like that, actually. I would like that a lot more. And I think most people would. I think Samoa Joe, if you put him in a position to draw, he will draw. MJF has been a draw because he's been established as sort of this Roddy Piper, he will say anything kind of character. He's now mostly moving towards The Miz, which is jokey, laughy, got a shtick and that kind of stuff. So maybe you need to shake things up and go with Joe. I would personally. I like Jay White, but I would probably put it on Joe before Jay White because Joe has more dimensions to his character. But the AEW World Title is a mess. The TNT title is, at least it's in the middle of something that's good because, Edge and Christian are going to do something good over there. The tag team titles are Collision only, and they're wrestling bums again. They're wrestling some bums, Big Bill and Ricky Starks. Look, Ricky Starks is not a bum, but Big Bill is an absolute bum. Certified 7-foot bum, and so it is what it is. That international belt, I want to melt it and throw it in the garbage. It's the most prestigious mid-card title they have, but it's worth nothing. And the women's world title is worth nothing because Saraya is not even on TV. So there. She's going to defend the title next week, however, against Hikaru Shida. I know a lot of people groaned when they saw that. I didn't groan. I don't hate Shida. I just know she's not going to win, and it's goofy to do that. But I can see that perhaps that's when they bring in Mercedes. Like I'm going to keep saying it until they do it. They're going to bring her in, and I'm seeing that they want to do this before Full Gear. And next week is the 10th, and if the pay-per-view is on the 12th, they'll have 4 weeks to build up Mercedes for the match with Saraya. They'll have 4 weeks, so get her on TV as quickly as possible. If she's still hurt, then you still need to debut her. And hopefully she'll be well enough by the time the match happens. So it is what it is. Next week's Dynamite it's okay. Danielson and Swerve, it's a good match. I'm interested in that. The reward is stupid. Oh, the winner's going to be the number one contender for the TNT belt. Oh, okay. Sure. They really care about that TNT title all of a sudden. Jay White versus Hangman Page. That's also pretty good. None of this stuff is going to be able to top, John Cena and Cody showing up. But I figured he would load up on matches because that's what his audience wants. And so he's abandoned the idea of we're going to get more viewers. He just wants to say, I want to keep my viewers, which is, playing defense is not, it's fine. He's saying, okay, you guys are going to probably win the night, but I don't want to lose by that much. So I'm going to put on a bunch of matches that my audience will like, and therefore they will be more likely to stick around. And then maybe they'll get a little surprise there too with Mercedes showing up. At least they better hope so. If again, AEW likes to do their surprises. They should just announce her and then say she's going to be on Dynamite. Especially if you want to save that rating. Just announce her. All right? Just say she's going to be there. She's going to speak or whatever. Trying to do everything in surprise is a negative. Sometimes you need to just announce people. WWE announcing Jade Cargill was a good spot. Because now people are like, when is she going to show up? What brand is she going to go to? What kind of feuds is she going to be a part of? That's the kind of conversation you should want about your division too. So instead of bringing people in as a surprise, you should announce it. Have a fucking press conference. Treat it like it's a big deal, even though, some people will say it's not. But that's how you get attention. I would announce her. Maybe on Collision, maybe, whatever. I would be like, we signed the big free agent Mercedes Moné. She was going to be on Dynamite and, yada, yada, yada. And then you put out a press release and all that kind of stuff. Like, brother, you got tickets you need to sell, right? Not just for this upcoming show, but for all future shows. And if you think she's a draw, you need to go ahead and announce it so that the ticket sales will go up and people will like, oh, okay, she's going to be here. I'm going to go out to see her. Get people to be interested. The only thing I can say is I'm going to keep saying she's going to show up until she shows up. But if she ever pops up on WWE TV, which is not likely, then the bag would have been fumbled completely. And then AEW's women's division is fucked. Because they need Mercedes like they need her badly. Badly. Because Toni Storm can't do it by herself. She's the only character on the show. Everybody else is just a wrestling wrestler. You know, nobody else stands out. Nobody jumps out at you. They need a star in their women's division, and they don't have one. So it is what it is. Let me know what you guys thought of this show. I thought it was terrible, to be quite honest. I'm still hoping Powerhouse Hobbs comes out of this unscathed. Interested in what they're doing with Edge and Christian. But for the rest of the show, let me know what you guys think, and I'll talk to you guys later.